This is my dopamine journal, and after 5 years of trying and failing to find a journal system that works for me, I've landed on this technique as the system that I think anybody can use, whether or not you want to get started journaling or you're just curious and want to maybe experiment with a new journal layout, particularly as we approach the new year. So in today's video, I'm going to show you all the 3 ridiculously easy steps that you can take to set up this dopamine journal. But as always, the timestamps are on screen and they're down below in the description, but that's enough hanging around. Let's just get right into the video. I don't know how much this sounds like you, but one of the reasons that I wanted to start journaling in the first place was I heard it was a really good way for your life to be a little bit more exciting. You know, I'm sure you've been in those conversations where people have asked about how your day was or what you did on the weekend, and for whatever reason, you know you did something, you just can't remember what it was. So you end up just replying by saying, oh yeah, it was fine, oh, I didn't get up to too much, or I cooked a meal, whatever. And you worry that you're feeling and you're coming across really boring and unexciting, and the other person doesn't want to hang out with you. What I noticed, and maybe this is the same for you, is that one of the biggest reasons why I was feeling this sense of boredom in my life was because I kind of just got into a sort of routine, right? It was kind of just like, oh, I know what time I'm going to wake up, I know what time I'm going to go to sleep, I know what time I'm at university for, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you see the problem here. And it was only after reading The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss that I discovered the importance of actually living a life you enjoyed day to day. So how do I actually use the dopamine journal to do that? The best part of this system is that it's something that literally takes 2 minutes to do. So if you take nothing else from this video, make sure to listen up to this. And it's something that I call dopamine days. So if you take a look at my dopamine journal, you'll see that I have a big double-page spread with the monthly view kind of around the top. And this is taken from the most recent month just gone of October, where I've got all of the dates filled in. So what I will do, and what I really encourage you guys to do too, is just write down a sort of day highlight from each of your day. Now, in the bullet journal community, this is something called 1 line a day, but there's a few key differences between this system and dopamine days, which you might be interested in. For me, dopamine days is all about not worrying too much about what you're actually writing down, just that you're writing down one thing a day. Let's take a look at Tuesday, the 29th of October. You'll see that all I wrote down was that I'd finished my history essay. But then contrary to that, you'll see on Sunday, the 6th of October, I actually went to the Emirates with a couple of my mates and watched an Arsenal football game. So the point is, it doesn't actually matter what you write down, whether it's something small like grabbing a coffee with a friend or just completing that hard thing you wanted to do, or if it's something big like a big trip or a big event that you've been planning for a long time. Another way that the dopamine days technique really stands alone in this kind of journal is that it doesn't matter too much if you miss a day or two, because in this day and age, most of us are taking photos on our phone. So for example, for me, if I missed a couple of days of writing in my journal, even though I tried my best, I can just look on my phone, look at the photos that I've taken, look at the conversations I've been having with my friends on WhatsApp or whatever, and then just fill in what I've done. And this way, you can just make sure the habit sticks long term. Not only that, but if you're a beginner in this journaling space, dopamine days is just going to be so effective for you, because you don't have to worry too much about journaling prompts or even think too hard about what you're going to write, because you know that it's just that daily highlight of each day. By this point, you've got a pretty decent idea of the first part of the system, but there's a second step, which is ridiculously simple, which if you can also implement into your own dopamine journal, I think your life is going to completely transform, and you're finally going to get clarity on the goals that are important for you to focus on, particularly in the new year. If you're anything like me, when you first started setting goals, you ended up with a big list of all these different things that you wanted to achieve, and it was almost like a bucket list. There's a huge problem with this. The thing is, your energy is finite, right? You can only spread yourself so thin. And if you use energy to focus on about 10 different goals, you've got to split that 10 different ways. Whereas if you use that same sort of amount of energy to focus on 1 or 2 or maybe even just 3 things, the energy goes a lot further. So the second part of this dopamine journal is all about your kind of monthly goals. I've been using this simple system called the pillars of life to give me some more clarity over what I actually want to do, to stop feeling bored and to feel fulfilled and to feel like I'm not actually wasting my time, my precious time here on planet Earth. And what that is basically I'm selecting a goal for my health, a goal for my wealth, and a goal for my mindset, which is all to do with learning and relationships, that sort of thing. And by focusing just on these few areas of my life, I get a really good understanding of, sometimes why you might feel sad or why you might feel happier than on other days. And how to use the dopamine journal to do this. So for the eagle-eyed viewers, you might be wondering why on earth some of my dopamine days are highlighted and why some aren't. And the reason for that is what I'll do every time the month ends and just before we start the new one is I'll go through and have a little bit of a reflection and a bit of a period of thinking about how my month went. So all that means is that I'll take out a green highlighter and go through and pick out the 2 dopamine days that I thought were the most, not even necessarily exciting, but the things that made me feel the most fulfilled, the most energized, the most satisfied, the most content. I highlighted having this conversation with my amazing friend Mia and, remembering how important those relationships are in your life. And also actually coming home and resting for a couple of days, which was something that perhaps I didn't appreciate that I needed so much in the moment. So you want to highlight the 2 things that, made you feel the most satisfied, but you might also be wondering what the pink highlights mean. You might be thinking that these are sort of negative things or things that were less good from the month, but that's not the case at all. Instead, what I'll do is just go through my dopamine days and highlight the 2 things that were sort of the most, let's say, surprising out of the month. So you can see for me here how that was on Friday, the 11th of October. I actually hung out with a completely new friendship group and had a really bloody good time from it. And here towards the end of the month, on the Wednesday, the 30th, I had a few days where I wasn't exercising as much as I would like to, went back to the gym and realized how much of an impact it makes to your life. And then that plays into the next part of the dopamine journal, which you'll see in the bottom right. You might be wondering why on earth there is a score and how you do that. As I said earlier, there are 3 sort of pillars of my life, my health, my wealth, and my mindset. But the mindset is a little bit more complicated in the fact that I need to split it up into a few more factors for my dopamine journal. And I recommend you to do this too. So for me, that just means I'm splitting my mindset up into learning, into relationships, and satisfaction. What I'll do at the same time when I'm highlighting all of my dopamine days, when I'm doing my reflection at the end of the month, is I'll go through and score these areas of my life out of 5. This is potentially one of the most crucial things that you can do in your dopamine journal. Because, for example, if we take a look at my learning, I only get that 3 out of 5. And then what I might do is go and compare it with another month, let's say April, and, I'll see that I gave it a 4 out of 5. So potentially at that point, I can wonder why there's been a little bit of a drop off. But there are 2 more steps that you could easily take in your dopamine journal to not only avoid having those end of life regrets, but actually give yourself some huge goals that are going to set you apart from basically everybody else. And the best part of this is that you're going to actually be able to follow through on these goals and have some pretty blooming awesome stories to tell for it as well. So let me tell you what those 2 things are. If there is only one thing that I've noticed in the past 5 years that's made the biggest difference to the feeling of enjoyment in my life, it is this. It's actually writing down what I intend to do. Because oftentimes in conversations, you can have these kind of throwaway comments where, oh yeah, one day I want to go and climb Mount Everest, or one day I want to run a marathon. The thing is, all you need to do to get started working towards your goals, it isn't motivation, it isn't even discipline to an extent, it's just writing down and understanding and knowing what you want to do. Because a goal written down is a goal that at least is, in my eyes, 1% completed. So how are you going to do this in your dopamine journal? Well, it's very simple. All you want to do is just write down a sort of monthly adventure. At least that's what I call it. So you can see in the bottom left of the system, I've written down my October adventure as have a couple of adventures, a couple of excursions in London with my friends Cal, John, and Michael Davidson. Look, these don't need to be huge, life-changing goals just yet. But, Otherwise, if you don't write these things down, you can miss out on opportunities just because time keeps passing and you're not keeping up with it. But the important part of this monthly adventure is having 2 sections to it. So you can see how there I've written my plan and what I've actually done. And then, like we said, when we come to this monthly reflection at the end of the month, I'll actually write in the outcome of how that adventure went. And for me, you can see how I had such an amazing time with both of my mates, going to the football with Cal and John. And then with my other friend, Michael, we had an awesome time too, exploring some random parts of London that otherwise I wouldn't have visited. If you make these monthly adventures a habit, which I'm sure you can do by using a dopamine journal, then each year, you're going to have 12 adventures, 12 amazing, exciting stories that you otherwise wouldn't have had. And think about how many stories you can have if you do this and make it a habit, how many stories you can have over a lifetime. The next part of the dopamine journal is the absolute #1 thing you have to do, because if you don't do this, all of your effort is going to be wasted. Let me tell you why. At the minute, I have 3 main goals. I want to get a 6-pack for my health, a little bit shallow, but I'll just be honest with you. For my wealth, I want to keep continuing to grow this YouTube channel. And then for my mindset, I want to keep building my relationships and trying to maintain some sort of work-life balance. But for you, you might be sat there watching this video wondering how on earth you're going to pick those goals, especially if you have not done this before or if you tried before and not had any success. So what I've done is put together a completely free checklist to find your 3 life pillars. So to get access to that completely for free, just hit that top link in the description and I'll send it over to you. But in terms of the dopamine journal, how do I use it to make sure that I'm actually sustaining progress towards these 3 life goals? Well, you'll see that the final section in our journal is something called monthly reflections. And like I've spoken about in other parts of the video, it is really, really important to consistently monitor and evaluate how you're getting on. So what I'll do at the end of the month, after I've done my highlighting, after I've done my scoring, and after I've put my outcome in for my monthly adventure, is I'll put in 3 monthly reflections that relate to my goals. So you can see here how my reflection on my health is that I need to keep exercising because it makes me feel so good. You can see in terms of my wealth, I joined a new entrepreneurs group where hopefully we're going to share a load of ideas, and I think that's going to be really good for my sort of business mindset going forwards. And finally, for my mindset, I just put that I feel like my relationships are in a great space. And one of your reflections can just be that things are going pretty good. From that point, you can make any sort of changes you need to going into next month, whether that's making a different monthly plan, or indeed just thinking of different things you can focus on. But look, I'm going to be honest with you. It took me 5 years to find this dopamine journal system that actually works for me. And at this point, I've realized that there were 3 mistakes that was stopping me from making journaling a habit and actually committing to this life-changing task. So to find out what 3 mistakes I was making and to find out what you can do to avoid them, you're going to want to watch this video here. So I'll see you all there.